so that we can go live on YouTube. Okay, good. So the YouTube link I would share to the WhatsApp platform now so that everyone can access. For those that are unable to join via the um, Google Meet platform. So, some minutes, please. So, please, I would like to request one of us to please help forward the link I just shared from the group 5. I would like someone to please help me share to the other groups if you are available, and if you are not, okay. So, I think I can just do that myself. Please, some minutes, please. Because
Please first check your mic.
Oh, apologies, apologies, apologies. I hope you guys can hear me now.
Yes, now.
Okay. So, okay, sorry, please, can you clarify which part I muted my mic? Apologies about that.
Throughout, though, we've not heard anything you said after saying you wanted to start
Wow.
streaming.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. All right, that's fine. I can always go back. We've not gone far. So, I was discussing that our topic for today is corporate failure. We mentioned in our last class when we were discussing business reorganization that business reorganization does not just come into play. What happens first is that there is an issue. An issue is identified. Then they are now looking at how to provide solution to those issues identified, if it is still possible to provide solution at that stage or at that level. Now, corporate failure refers to the collapse of a company, typically characterized by insolvency, bankruptcy, or the inability to continue operations. Now, when we talk about corporate failure majorly, from the definition of failure, we already know that, okay, the business has failed. How did the business fail? There are several criteria, or there are several metrics to put to test for you to identify that, okay, this business is failing, this business is about to fail, or this business has failed. Now, majorly, when a business is characterized under either of these um, lines, it is automatically a failure. Now, it could be insolvent, or the company is declared bankrupt, or the inability of the company to continue to operate. Now, all of these things are typical characteristics of a failed company. Now, I further explained that corporate failure is the inability of a business organization to constantly make sufficient profit to meet the expectation of its shareholders. Now, when we talk about corporate failure, one of the things we'll look out for is, like I explained earlier during our course of discussion in business reorganization, I mentioned that corporate failure, when we talk about business reorganization, of course, business reorganization does not just happen over the night. There must have been several issues that must have been piling up before the business now look at, okay, it seems like at this point there is need for us to reorganize. There is need for us to test what we are doing, or there is need for us to review our plans, our strategic plans, to see how well we can perform or how well we can do. Now, corporate failure now is the inability of business organizations to constantly make sufficient profit. I explained that sufficient profit is not just about a business making profit. No. When you compare your profitability to your budget, you will be able to identify if the business is actually making sufficient profit or not. However, it is not just to make profit. It is necessary that when you make profits, are those profits sufficient for the business? And when we talk about sufficiency, we talk about how well have you performed, comparing your actual to your budgeted, comparing your actual performance to your budget. How well have you been able to perform? What is your profitability like actual? What is your projected profitability in your budget? That is when you can say, that is the metrics, one of the metrics rather, you can put to say, okay, have we made sufficient profit? Or another characteristic is when the expectations of shareholders of a company are not met. We explained during the course of business reorganization that one of the things that business reorganization would do, or is to do, is to ensure that your business is actually making sufficient profit. However, even if they are making sufficient profit, are they working in line with the expectations of the shareholder? When we talk about expectations of shareholders, what are we talking about? We are talking about maximization of wealth. Everything a shareholder wants, everything a stakeholder wants, is revolving around maximization of wealth, is revolving around wealth maximization. So one of the things you can put into consideration, that brings about corporate failure is the fact that, one, it could be as a result of profitability, declining profitability, or low level of how do I say it now? Low level of follow up on the shareholders' expectations, or I should say, poor performance that brings about dissatisfaction of shareholders. So all of these things now are what brings about corporate failure. And when you see all of these things within an organization, it is safe for you to say, oh, this business needs to be reviewed. Now, corporate failure can result from a variety of internal and external factors. It is not enough to say corporate failure has happened, then you want to blame it solely on internal factors. No. There are external factors that are within the industry or within the geographical location in which the business operates that can directly affect the business as a whole. Now, understanding all of these factors now will help you identify early warning signs. When you identify all of these factors, you don't just focus on external factors, you don't just focus on internal factors. You balance the two sides. You balance on internal side as well as the external factors. Then when you identify all of these factors, it will give you insight as to the signs and need to implement strategies to prevent failure within a corporate organization. Now, having understood what corporate failure is about, I hope you guys can hear me. Please, I just need a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Esther. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Afolabi. So, causes of corporate failure now. When we talk about the causes of corporate failure, I have been able to subcategorize them into financial mismanagement, operational deficiency, poor strategic decisions, competitive pressures, and management failure. Those are the subdivisions I have been able to divide all of those causes into. Now, we pick them one by one after the other. We have financial mismanagement. One of the causes of corporate failure is financial mismanagement. When funds are being utilized in a manner that is inappropriate, that is poor financial management. Now, what are the examples of financial mismanagement? We have poor cash flow management, inadequate cash flow that lead to liquidity issues, preventing the company from meeting its short-term obligations. Of course, we all know that after preparing our financials, one of the things we do as a finance personnel is to do analysis of the financials to see how well the business is doing in their financial position side, how well as the business performed as well. So we check both sides. Now, one of the things we will always want to check is the liquidity of the business. Because when a business is not liquid, there are so many things that would be affected. Of course, it will not be able to meet up with its short-term obligations. A company that cannot meet up with short-term obligations, how do you expect them to meet up with long-term obligations? Of course, it is almost impossible. So one of the examples of financial mismanagement, we say poor cash flow management, inadequate cash flows that lead to liquidity issues, which could prevent the business organization from meeting up with its short-term obligations. And a company, like I said earlier, that is unable to meet up with its short-term obligations, how then would it meet up with its long-term obligations? Of course, we all know that it's almost impossible. Now, another example is over-leveraging. Now, excessive borrowing can lead to high debt servicing costs, which can become unmanageable if revenue falls. I know you will all agree with me that this is one of the challenges we are facing currently in Nigeria, over-leveraging. We have too much borrowings that has led us to high debt servicing costs because we have borrowed so much that at a point in the existence of this same Nigeria, we use close to 98% or 99% of our revenue to service debt. Now, debt servicing is not like we are paying back the debt. Debt servicing is just we are servicing the debt. That is, we are clearing the interest portion on our debt. We are not even talking about the principal yet. So if a business has so much borrowing that it now begins to service its debt with so much cost, this can lead to, especially when their revenue is dropping. When your revenue is dropping and you have to incur more costs. Of course, you know that profitability is is at stake. That is the reality. Profitability is almost impossible. So that is one of the examples of financial mismanagement. We also have inadequate capital structure. An improper mix of debt and equity can create financial instability for a company. So this is another example of financial mismanagement when we look at inadequate capital structure, that is, or let's call it improper mix of um, debt and equity structure, when a company is not balancing its debt to its equity ratio. So it is an example of financial mismanagement. Another causes of corporate failure, we talk about operational deficiencies. Now, when we talk about operational deficiency, we'll be looking at it from the perspective of the company's performance itself. How well has the company been performing? How well have they been able to put to use their financial their assets? How well have they has the company been able to put to use their human assets? So all of these things are examples of causes of corporate failure. An example of operational deficiency, we have production inefficiency. Poor management of production processes can lead to higher costs or lower profitability. Now, when production processes are not properly managed, when production processes are not properly managed, it can lead to high cost. And of course, when your cost is high and your revenue is not growing in proportion to your cost, of course, you expect a lower profitability or a zero profitability report. So that is an example of operational deficiency. We also have supply chain issues. Now, disruption in the supply chain can affect the availability of raw materials and components impacting production. Another thing that could bring about operational deficiency, don't forget, when we were introducing corporate failure, we mentioned that corporate failure is not just about internal factors alone. We also have external factors that the company does not have 100% control over. Now, supply chain issues. Now, we talk about issues with getting raw material, getting components that are used in production or in manufacture. Now, these are issues that affect operations and could lead to operational deficiency. And when there is operational deficiency, of course, you expect a poor performance level, which of course would have an impact on your bottom line. What is your bottom line? Profitability. So that is another aspect of causes of corporate failure. We also have poor strategic decisions. Now, when businesses or when management do not take the right decisions, of course, it would affect or could lead to corporate failure. And what are the examples of poor strategic decisions? We have failed mergers and acquisition. When a merger or acquisition is not successful, of course, it would lead to deplete in resources, because of course during the process of mergers and acquisitions, your employees, just like we discussed during business reorganization, your employees are worried, they are scared, they are concerned about their security, the job security itself. So of course, some of your goods hands might have left and the merger is no longer successful. You need all of those good hands. You have to start sourcing for all of those again. This can also lead to corporate failure. Then we also have distraction from management. Failed mergers and acquisition can also bring about distraction with management staff, because of course, when your good hands are gone, you now need to start bringing in new set of people, and at the same time, your shareholders have their own expectations whether or not the merger is successful. So those are the examples of poor strategic decision. Okay, we also have ineffective market entry. When you try to enter into a new market without adequate research or preparation, that can lead to significant loss. Of course, for you to enter into a new market, you must have incurred some certain costs, even if not much. Of course, you must have incurred cost of research and development and some other sunk costs that must have come into place before the full operation of the business. So we also have competitive pressures. We have technological disruption. That's the inability to adapt to technological changes that can make a company obsolete. Of course, When you look at the activities of the likes of OPay, the likes of MoneyPoint, they are fintech companies, you see that most individuals are diverting to that line of transaction rather than using the conventional commercial banks, especially for loan. You will realize that only few individuals now go to commercial banks to take loans, while fintechs are doing more. Of course, it is not because of technological disruption, but there are technological changes that all of these fintech companies have adopted, but the commercial banks are not adopting. Maybe because of regulations or whatsoever. But what I want us to just get there is, technological advancements and what it could lead to in your business, and what impact it can have in your business organization. Then we also have market saturation. We talk about intense competition in a saturated market can erode profit margin. Of course, when you are in a market that is saturated, it is expected that you want to meet up with the industry, and you don't want to be behind in the industry. You want to be a top player in the industry. By doing that, there is need for you to start giving discounts, doing some promos, adverts, and all of those things that are cost implicating. And of course, the higher your cost, the lower your profit. So all of these things are could be identified as causes of corporate failure. We also have management failure. Of course, poor leadership definitely brings about a poor organization, because when the leaders are bad, of course, you expect it to take a toll on the employees or the staff of those organizations, and indirectly would affect the performance of the organization at large. We have examples. We have the leadership problem. Poor leadership and governance can lead to strategic missteps and operational failure. And we also have lack of innovations. Failing to innovate can result in a loss of market relevance. Of course, when you lose market relevance, there is little or nothing you can do within the market space, because as you are losing that relevance, another company in that same industry is bringing in a technology that is even far ahead of what you have, while you are holding the relevance within the market. Then we also have external factors. All of those we have mentioned earlier are majorly internal factors that causes corporate failure. We talk about external factors. Now, these are factors that, of course, they are beyond the control of the organization itself. Now, we talk about economic downtowns, recession period, economic slowdown, just like we are facing currently in Nigeria now, can also reduce consumer spending and business investment. This is a major challenge in Nigeria currently that is affecting businesses. But of course, we are finding a balance within the economy. Another challenge is regulatory changes. When, of course, you look at our economy recently, you realize that almost every new week, we tend to get new regulations, we tend to get new gazettes from the federal government, we tend to get new updates from, local government organizations, regulatory bodies. So all of those things can have a direct impact on the failure of an organization. We also have political instability. Of course, we all understand that the Nigeria that we used to know, once a new government comes into place, it refuses to accept what the old government are doing. Rather, they want to start their own new processes. So all of these instabilities, changes in the policies, international market disruption, and all of those things has a direct impact on the performance of the business. And of course, the better the performance, the more the company abstains from corporate failure, and the poorer their performance, of course, the closer they are to corporate failure. Now, having discussed all of that, we'll now go straight to discuss the signs and symptoms of corporate failure. Of course, we would have discussed corporate failure prediction model, but I want to bring it down. We discuss all of the other things before we now talk about corporate failure prediction model. Now, we have discussed the causes, what could cause corporate failure. Now, we need to identify, because we have said during the course of our introduction that if we don't identify all of these causes, how are we going to be able to manage them? how would we address all of these issues timely? It is not about addressing the issue. However, how timely is all of those actions plans put in place? So now we need to talk about the symptoms, or let's say the signs of corporate failure. We have the financial indicators. When you begin to see that the revenue and profits of an organization is declining, of course, you know that these are signs of corporate failure. When a company continuously or persistently makes a decline in revenue, of course, you expect that their cost, they have their variable cost, they have their fixed cost. The fixed cost, irrespective of whatever the situation, irrespective of whatever the company is being faced with, it still will not stop them from incurring all of those fixed costs. However, the variable cost is a function of what they have produced or what they are selling. So, however, once your revenue is declining, of course, it has a direct impact on your bottom line. So these are signs of corporate failure. Another financial indicator is increasing debt level. When a company continues to borrow money, borrow money, of course, it is a sign of corporate failure, because they will get to a point that their borrower will now begin to ask them for a debt covenant. And when we talk about debt covenant, it is an agreement, a legally binding agreement between the borrower and the fund provider, that the borrower, it could be of anything. It could be that the borrower can no longer borrow a certain level of funds from another institution. It could be that they can't even borrow at all. Either way, it is still an indication that this company is about to fail. Another financial indicator, we talk about the negative cash flow. Consistent negative cash flow from operations is a bad sign for businesses. When you see that your company is always having a negative cash flow from operational cash flow, negative, all of the time, it is a bad sign. Now, we talk about the operational indicators. Now, when we talk about the operational indicators, we look at your operations. What are the things you are going to see within your operations that would give you this sense of need for review of your activities as you are about to identify a failing company? Now, we talk about inventory buildup. I hope you guys can hear me, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. All right, so inventory buildup. We have excessive inventory may indicate declining sales. Of course, when your inventory continues to increase, of course, your inventory should increase. However, your closing inventory should not continue to increase. It means that you are not doing well in your sales. And of course, if your sales is not doing well, your profitability is not going to do well at the same time. So operational indicators, we talk about excessive inventory rather. Then we also talk about production delay. Of course, frequent delay in production and delivery can also indicate corporate failure, because when you continue to delay production, your customer will get tired at a point and they would need to source for another company they would want to buy from. So of course, when you lose all of those customers, you lose funds and your revenue also is depleting. So those are a few examples of operational indicators. We have market indicators. Now, when we look at market indicators, we look at market share decline. When a company continues to lose their market share to competitors, of course, it is an indication that the business is failing and there is a need for them to review the business strategy. Now, another thing is customer attrition, increasing rate of customer churn. When your customers begin to find alternative, when they start to find new providers, all of those things, of course, it is an indication that the business is failing. So those are market indicators. We also have strategic indicators. We talk about frequent strategy change. Of course, when strategic plans are plans that are meant to last for at least 5 years. But when it now happens that every 6 months, your business organization is coming up with new rules. Oh, when you go to work this week, you realize that there is new rule from the HR team. There is new SLA for this. There is new SLA for that. Updated this, updated that. Of course, it is a sign of strategic corporate failure. So that is another example of strategic indicators of corporate failure. We also have failed projects. High rate of project failures and write-offs. Of course, when your projects continue to fail all the time, you must have incurred costs. But because of the failure of the project, you cannot identify or you cannot ascertain revenue from it. So, of course, it is a debt on you and indirectly affects your bottom line. At the same time, we also have write-offs. Of course, when you continue to write off debt, of course, it would affect your bottom line as well. So then we also have management indicators, high employee turnover. When you realize that almost every week, key personnel staffs are signing out of the company, of course, it is an indication that something is wrong within the framework of the organization, which needs to be reviewed. Boardroom conflict, frequent conflict and resignations among board members. Of course, when your board members keep resigning, or every time you are hearing that, oh, this board member shouted or lamented at the other board member, of course, when there's consistent conflict within the board, of course, these are also indicators that, the business is failing. Then, having discussed the signs and symptoms of corporate failure, we now need to discuss how do you prevent or avert corporate failure. Now, we also subdivided that into several lists now, where we talked about we have cash flow, preventing corporate failure. We talk about financial management, where we talk about cash flow monitoring, that is regular monitoring and management of cash flows. Of course, ways to prevent corporate failure. Corporate failure does not mean that the business cannot still continue to exist. However, it is a sign that the going concern of that business is being questioned, and there is need for the management team to review their strategic plan, to review their policies, to come up with better strategic plans for the organization. Now, one of the ways to prevent corporate failure is cash flow monitoring. Ensure that regular monitoring is being done on your cash flows. You ensure that what is coming in, you ensure you follow up with what is coming in, and you do comparative of your report to ascertain that, okay, you set a budget, are you working in line with your budget, and all of those things are things that, financial management indicators for preventing corporate failure. We also have debt management, that is maintaining a balanced debt to equity ratio. Of course, maintaining a balanced debt to equity ratio is a relative thing, and it is relative to the industry you belong to. So you need to identify your industry average. When you identify your industry average, you identify your competitors' average. You will now use all of those metrics to checkmate yourself if you are actually doing well, if you are not doing well. You set a benchmark for yourself. And all of those things, when you put them in place, it helps you to prevent or to avert corporate failure. We also have operational efficiencies, process optimization, continuously improve operational processes. One of the things to do to prevent corporate failure is continuously reviewing your processes. When you look at the way things are done, you check your competitors. How are they doing it? What are they doing right that you are not doing right? How are they doing it? You want to implement or you want to make it better. So all of those processes can help you prevent corporate failure. Another thing we could talk about is supply chain management. Develop a resilient supply chain. Developing a resilient supply chain is not just about, oh, I get this vendor, I get this vendor, I get this vendor. No, it is far above that. One of the things you can do in that manner is not just to get several vendors. One of the things you need to consider is how much are they willing to give you? How much discount are they willing to give you? How much goods are they willing to give to you on credit? How much credit facilities are they willing to provide for you? When you put all of those things in place, it helps you enhance your operational efficiency. And of course, when your operational efficiency is improved, of course, it prevents you or it averts corporate failure for your organization. We would also talk about strategic planning. We talk about market research, conducting thorough market research before entering a new market. Before you go into a new market, it is necessary and important that you do a thorough research on the market you want to go into. Identify the rulers in the market. What are they doing? How are they doing it? You know them. You meet with them. You know what challenges they are facing in that industry. So it prepares you ahead. When you enter into the market, you know what steps to take. You know the right thing to do. Another thing is investment in research and development to stay competitive. One of the things that are killing some of our Nigeria companies, some of our organizations, is the fact that they do not encourage innovations. Innovations is key to the continuous success of every organization. Any organization that does not appreciate innovation would stay a few years before it goes into extinction. So all of those things are strategic ways to prevent or avert corporate failure. Another item is strong leadership. Ensure effective and visionary leadership. When appointing management, the management has to be effective and they have to be visionary. It is not enough for a manager to say, okay, this is what we have made this month. Maybe we have made 20,000 this month. Next month, we are saying, oh, we can do 30,000 is a good one. No, that is not the work of a visionary leader. A visionary leader prepares ahead of what is going to happen in the next 5 years in an organization. A visionary leader understands who would be with the organization in the next 5 years. So all of these things, when they are put into check, when proper and effective leadership is put into place, of course, this would help also to prevent corporate failure. Another thing we could talk about is corporate governance, implementing strong governance practice to oversee management. Of course, it is not just enough to bring in, oh, this person is my person, and because of that, this person can, be the management or be the MD or the CEO of this organization. Of course, you need to review what experience the manager has. You need to understand what can the manager bring to the table. So all of these things, when you implement a strong governance practice to oversee management, of course, it will help you prevent or avert corporate failure. Then we talk about risk management, diversification. One of the things that can help prevent corporate failure is diversification. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You spread your risk. Don't be focused on one production. Spread your risk. If you are a producer, spread your risk across board. Spread your risk across several aspects of the business. So this will help you to prevent failure. When one is not performing, another is performing. The one that is performing, it would help the one that is not performing to perform or to meet up with at par. So that is risk management. We also have contingency planning. Of course, this majorly has to do with budgeting. When you have plans, when you maintain contingency plans, it will help you in the time of disruption. Of course, when you have plans set down, when there is any form of disruption that is coming into play, you can actually manage it because there is a plan on ground. Then we talk about stakeholders engagement. Of course, communication is key. One of the things that keeps an organization is open communication. In every organization, it is important to maintain open communication with stakeholders. It is important to maintain open communication with stakeholders, including employees, customers, and investors. So all of these things, ensuring proper communication with stakeholders. Of course, your stakeholders are not just your shareholders. Your employees are stakeholders. Your customers are stakeholders. Encourage feedback. Encourage feedback. Learn to get feedback. Don't just take decisions and do not expect feedback. Expect feedback from people. Let's hear what they have to say and all of those things. So that would help to also further prevent corporate failure. Then we talk about corporate responsibility. Of course, it is important for organizations in our economy now to engage in responsible business practices to build um, trust and loyalty. To build trust and loyalty. So please, these are ways to prevent and avert corporate failure. So all of this we have discussed. I would want to stop here tonight. However, we still have a part of the topic that we are here to discuss, which is corporate failure prediction model. This aspect of the topic is just where we discuss on, okay, how do we review corporate failure? How do we identify when a company is failing? How do we know when a company is not failing, or when the company needs to review their processes to avoid failure? So these are models that we use. And of course, in this part, we have the quantitative and we also have the qualitative. For the quantitative part, we talk about the Altman-Zisco model, where we use the model majorly. We use financial ratios to review a company's performance to ascertain whether the company is risky or is facing the risk of corporate failure, or the company is at already in is already a failed company, or the company needs to review its operations so as to avoid corporate failure. Then we talk about the qualitative part. Of course, it is not just financial issues that brings about corporate failure. There are other non-financial issues that brings about corporate failure. And for the qualitative part, we'll be talking about the Argentine model. The Argentine model identified three major non-financial reasons, where it talks about the management defect, talks about the accounting defect, and it talks about the errors in action. So in our next class, I'll try as much as possible to prepare a question for us to use to solve questions on Altman-Zisco model, the quantitative corporate prediction model, which is majorly, ICANN has never tested this. However, it is necessary that we still treat, because we can never predict what ICANN will test. However, ICANN has tested the theoretical part. And if you look at the illustration I have here, it is a question that was tested in November 2015, where they asked, identify and discuss financial symptoms of corporate failure in Nigeria. Then they asked us to also discuss 7 general causes of corporate failure. Of course, with this class tonight, I believe that there's nobody that would see any of this in the exam hall and will not get the marks allotted to all of this. So with this, I would want to pend the class till next class for anyone who would want to ask questions to ask. So please, if you have question, please don't just unmute. Please raise your hand so that I can take the call. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, please, sir. Apart from this recording on YouTube, are you going to share the note with us? I don't know if you do that.
Yes, definitely. I'm going to share the note. Once the class ends, I'm going to share the note.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, sir. Hello.
Hello, Lydia. Please raise your hand. I can see someone asking question if the material will be shared. Yes, the material will be shared. And for the last class, the material is already on the group, so you can just check the group and you would get that. Okay, thank you, Lydia. Please go ahead.
Sorry, sir. Good evening. So my question is, last class we solved one question on portfolio theory. I don't know if we are done with that topic.
Yeah. So for the portfolio theory question you have asked, I would not be able to answer that because, of course, I was not the one that anchored the class. However, not to worry. If the class will continue by Monday or Wednesday, you will get a notification. But I doubt if portfolio theory is a class that will be taken in just one class and it will end there. No,
Okay, sorry, I didn't
yeah.
know that you're not the one. Thank you.
That's all good. That's all good. So I assume there is or there are no further questions. So
Please, it's
thank
not
you.
a question. It's not a question, but sorry, I was just checking the group now. The last class, I'm not sure you dropped. You didn't draw. Just checked the material for the business reorganization. It's only the links, the YouTube links that is there. I mean, the material you used, you projected.
Okay, I'm going to check out revert.
Okay, group 2. I don't know for other groups if it's there.
All right, that's fine. I'm going to check and I will get back to you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. I appreciate you guys for preparing to attend class. I would also want to implore every one of us to please and please try as much as possible. Start reading now. Tomorrow may be too late. Just like our pastors will tell us, today give your life to Christ. Tomorrow may be too late. Today start reading. Tomorrow may be too late. ICANN is not your friend. Thank you so much, guys, and do have a wonderful evening.
Same to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.